morning, Bethany.
Good morning.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to start the trustee special meeting for the purpose of a work session at 9:32 a.m. Astral's here, Sweatik's here, Augustine here. And we will go ahead and pass it right off to you, Bethany, as our guest today. I'm just going to ask that you go to the podium just for the virtual audience to hear you. We have one person on.
All right. So thank you for having me back. Obviously, I was here the last time for the conversation about Discount Drug Mart, and I had some follow-up conversation with Trustee Astral and talked about trying to have me come back and maybe have a bit of a debrief and have some exploration of the idea of creating guidelines for the township CRA program. So what I've done, and I think I sent them to you, I don't know if you distributed them, but I have hard copies. These are samples of, so the packet that I'm going to give you, it has an overview of the instructions that I give out to companies who are applying for a tax abatement, so they know how it generally works. There's a copy of the application form itself, kind of a small one. Then there's Hinckley Townships, and I'm specifically looking at the CRA number 5, which is the one that has to be negotiated and applied for ahead of time. And then there are samples of 3 other townships in Medina County that have set up maybe specific guidelines, some more formal than others. Lafayette Township, for example, they put in their guidelines themselves when they created the law. They specified some information about retail. I don't know if any of you gentlemen know this.
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
So Lafayette Township, for example, when they set up their tax abatement, they specified in Division C and D. C is for remodeling, and then Division D is for new construction. They also have a maximum of 50% for 15 years for new construction. They specified that retail projects with a construction cost of less than $3 million are excluded. So Lafayette Township was set up at a time when they were trying to attract a hotel resort project to Lafayette Township, and they wanted to be able to incentivize something on a larger retail scale, but not sort of the smaller, retail projects that might only be investing a couple $100,000. So they wanted to make sure that their incentives were being used for a project that would bring the biggest bang for their buck and the most future taxes, for example. Montville Township is in the packet as well. Now, they're a little bit different because they established their CRA with the requirement that any company that are approved for a CRA have to join the JED. So Montville Township has a joint economic development district with the city of Medina, and that gives the township income taxes that they otherwise wouldn't have in any other area. So what they try to do is balance to offset the property taxes that they're foregoing with new income taxes that would come in. So, they're looking for payroll levels as well as the real property investment. So they've determined that anything that brings $1 million of new payroll as well as $5 million of investment, that's what qualifies for the maximum CRA, 50% for 15 years. And then it has a descending list from there. Payroll below $250,000 and less than $1 million of investment, they're getting 40% for 10 years and 30% for 5 years. So you can see the tiers there, depending on how much new payroll and how much new investment are there. They get either, appropriately less of a CRA rate. And again, that's to balance their revenue streams. Granger Township, they do not have a JED, so payroll wasn't really a consideration for them. They're looking at the strict level of property investment. So Granger Township sets aside their highest CRA rate and term, 50% for 15 years, for any real property investment, new construction of $3 million and above. Anything between 1 and 3 million, they do 50% only for 7 years. Then it goes down to 40% for 4 years and 30% for 4 years. Anything below $1 million is at 40% for 10 years and 30% for 5 years. So the idea is that just because your schedule says, 50% for 15 years, doesn't mean that that's what the township has to offer. Everything is negotiable. And that's what I tell companies when we go into the application process is, we set up a meeting with the township and the county officials and everybody who's involved so that we can discuss the terms of the abatement. And the application itself, when they put down, hey, I want 50% for 15 years, that's what they want. Doesn't mean that's necessarily what they're going to get, because everything is negotiable. That's why the legislation that Hinckley Township passed indicates that the abatement is up to 15 years and up to 50%. So there's that opportunity to have those conversations with the company. And it's a very flexible tool. I've worked with the state for a number of years on these tools, and they have said that there's a lot of flexibility with a local community in terms of what they might ask a company to do in return for a tax abatement. So Montville Township, for example, requires them to join the Joint Economic Development District, which means they have to commit to paying payroll taxes in order to get the benefit of a tax abatement. I've talked with other communities where, they've asked the company to do a compensation agreement with their parks department or their police department or their local schools. Local schools is very common. So there's flexibility from the local community and what they can ask of a company in order to provide the tax abatement. As long as it's not prohibited in the code, then it's pretty wide open. They look to the local community's legal counsel for, final guidance. So the state tends not to, see an agreement and say, oh no, you can't do that. That's not really their role. They really depend on the local community to make up their own guidelines. So the conversation that I had with Trustee Asherle was about kind of helping to set expectations for future projects. So companies who come in and, they see the schedule, hey, 50% for 15 years, that's what they're going to ask for. I mean, it's, normal human instinct, I guess. But if there were guidelines that I could attach to the application form and say, these are the guidelines that the township trustees have already approved. This is what they're comfortable with. This is the incentive for specific types of companies or sizes of investment, whatever the case may be. It helps to set expectations with the company as they're going into it. It just makes the process that much easier, and I think takes some of the uncertainty out of it about, whether the trustees are going to be in favor of it and, what the commissioner is going to do. The commissioners obviously have always deferred to the local community, the trustees, as to what your preference is. So when the vote was passed on Discount Drug Mart, I have not taken that to the commissioners yet because, they just haven't traditionally approved agreements that haven't been approved by the local community. So it's kind of where we are now. Going forward, if you'd like to pursue working on guidelines, I would welcome your feedback on that. I'll be happy to, try to draft something and put that together. It would be good to have a better understanding of what you all are looking for and, what kind of development you would like to incentivize in those corridors.
I think it's a wonderful suggestion. It's one of the things I was kind of digging for when the CRA from Drug Mart came to our tables. And I thought, how I can get all of this information from the county. I have back information, but it's all from the county. I was looking back at old emails from Trustee Schulte, Trustee Kleena, and it all was deferring to the county. And I think you're exactly right that we need to have something here in Hinckley Township that better defines what we're comfortable with moving forward.
Right.
I agree. You and I spoke last month about this, and I did receive all the information, which I know I had said I was going to bring it up at a work session, but between the fire levy and the comprehensive plan and the website, I thought, let's do this at the beginning of August. So we're about 2 weeks ahead of my schedule. But thank you for coming in, because it was something after our discussion on it, I did want to bring up with the board and see their thoughts on it, because my thoughts are kind of to do a reverse scale. of what these other townships have, and I wanted to know everyone's thoughts on it to attract more of the local businesses and the smaller businesses, to give them more of a tax incentive, tax break incentive for the smaller amount of investment. But that's just my thoughts. I don't know where you're both at with it.
I just got this document today. I haven't had it previously, so I would like to review it before I put my ideas into it. If you have any thoughts, Jack.
Again, my concern is hearing any talk about annexation up there, and I don't know, has Drug Mart reacted at all to the, do you know, Bethany, to what our vote was?
Well, I did share the information with Steve, and I know that the company is, taking that into consideration as they're trying to figure out what to do next. We talked a little bit. I think you mentioned it at the other meeting. Annexation is a concern. Annexation is always a possibility. I mean, companies can, do what they'd like to do. I did get some feedback from Commissioner Hambley because I look on him as a county historian. So he was there when these tax abatement zones were being put into place. And he indicated to me that at least the thinking of the trustees at that time were to put those tax abatement areas on the north side. It was pre-94, and then on the south side of Center Road was post-94. But the thinking was that it would provide some sort of a barrier against the potential for annexation, that it would give the township some tools to offer incentives to companies who wanted to develop in that area, and they wouldn't feel like they needed to annex into the city in order to take advantage of those incentives and other programs. So they were kind of designed on purpose in that corridor to prevent, annexation and to keep that border intact. But that, I guess, that depends on trustees change, and it depends on what your priorities are now. I know that particular corridor, it's hot property right now because of the growth that we have seen in Brunswick, particularly. There's more people there. There's a lot of commercial opportunity. So I guess it's really up to you as to how you would like to sort of put in place what those incentives might look like in order to attract the kinds of companies you want.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, a company like Drug Mart that may be trying to build on that intersection there, Brunswick would grant the annexation, or Brunswick would grant the tax abatement. So because the school board said yes, correct? Well,
Brunswick is a little bit of a different case. So in Hinckley Township, if you did anything at 50% or below, the school board does not have to approve. The county likes to see the company give a compensation agreement. Sometimes they take that to the school board to approve that document. Sometimes the superintendent just accepts it. But anything at the 50% level or lower, the school board does not have to approve. If Hinckley Township were to offer anything higher, then the school board would have to approve. In the city of Brunswick, they have what's called the pre-94 tax abatement zone, just like Hinckley Township has where Aldi is. That means that if a company constructs a building and it's a commercial building and they want to apply for the tax abatement, they have to do it afterwards. So they actually have to show the occupancy permit and the building permit, and they apply for it after the building is already done. Then the auditor applies the tax abatement before the building is, once the building is 100% valued. And the company gets 100% of the new real property taxes on that new structure for 15 years. And that vote never has to go to the school board because it's not an agreement. It was set up under prior rules in 1994 that didn't require the school board to vote. So in those cases, new commercial developments in the city of Brunswick, if they apply for the tax abatement, they get it as long as they fill out all the paperwork and all of that is in order. The law director in the city of Brunswick interprets the language of their pre-94 code that if they do annex in, or if the city borders expand, that the tax abatement applies to anything new that's been added to the city. So if that property were annexed in, then a company who would construct there would be able to get the 100% 15-year tax abatement. Just going through the normal process, they wouldn't need school board approval.
My biggest concern is, Jack mentioned it in his vote, annexation, and now I've just heard you say annexation a couple of times in this conversation. And that is the biggest thing that I want to fight against, is any kind of annexation, because I think once it starts, it's very difficult. Once you cross that line, it's difficult to stay on that line. You're going to keep dancing around it and stepping over it. So is that something, do you know if anybody has applied for annexation?
I don't think somebody can apply for annexation unless they own the property. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not wrong. So but I think it's the property owner who would have to apply. So I don't know that any formal applications have been put into place, but obviously that is, people are aware that is available and, could be a concern. And that's why I mentioned, what Commissioner Hambley said was the original purpose of establishing the Hinckley Township CRA zones was to keep that border intact and to make sure that you're incentivizing development in Hinckley so that they wouldn't feel like they needed incentives from other communities. So when you're thinking about your schedule, you have to think about that, because larger companies who are going to invest more, they're going to expect a higher tax abatement because they're investing a significantly higher amount than, a smaller mom and pop retail. And that's not to say you couldn't give the smaller mom and pop retails, maybe you give them a higher level. I mean, if you wanted to change your legislation, you could certainly do that to incentivize the smaller mom and pops to a higher level. They would need approval of the school board, but if it's a smaller project, then the school board's likely to be fine with, I can't speak for the school board, but they're more likely to be okay with let's say a $500,000 investment than a $5 million investment that's going to, the amount that would be abated is much higher at a higher investment level. So there are things that you could do certainly to incentivize those smaller projects to a higher extent than the schedule that you already have.
Okay. Well, you've given us a lot to think about, for sure.
And obviously the documents that I gave you are just models. I mean, you can work on whatever whatever makes sense to you. I just wanted you to be aware that if you did want to change your legislation to incentivize the smaller companies, maybe to a higher extent than what's already here, then that would require a legislation change. You would need to provide a resolution to say, hey, we want to actually change the schedule of incentives. The township would have to approve it, and then I would take it to the county commissioners to approve it, and it would have to get filed with the state. But that certainly is an option that might give you more flexibility to incentivize what you want. Just as a point of reference, I have been working with the Village of Spencer, also a small community, which they've got an industrial park they're trying to develop. And so when they set theirs up, they set it at 100% 15 years. Because they wanted to attract certain kinds of investments to that industrial park, knowing that anything above 50% still has to get the approval of the school board. But that's what they wanted to do. So there certainly are post-94 communities that are setting up tax abatement schedules, above that 50% level. But it's that 50% that kind of keeps the school board, you don't have to go to the vote. I did want to make you aware of one piece, and this is a piece of legislation that is currently working its way through the state. I think it passed the House. It's now in the Senate. I think the Finance Committee, maybe Ways and Means, one of the committees. But there's a proposal that would take the tax abatement schedule and increase it to 75% for 15 years. That would not require school board approval. We've actually testified against that because I think it's important that school boards are involved and have a say in, the significant amount of money that is foregone with these programs. But right now it's in committee. We've heard that it may move forward for a vote at the House level by the end of the year. But that's a consideration if you're thinking about increasing your tax abatement level to say 75%, then that, if that legislation passes, then at 75%, the school board would not have to approve it. It just makes the process a little bit less involved. I'll put it that way. But I know you've got a lot to think about, but if you want me to come back in August, if you're ready for me to, if you're ready to talk about what you'd like to do by then, that would certainly be fine. But this maybe gives you a baseline of information to think about. And I'm available at any time. Feel free to give me a call or send me an email just to say, hey, I don't understand this. I'll be happy to try to explain as best that I can.
So maybe we'll have Bethany come back out in August. We can talk about it further, maybe in 2 weeks at our next work session, and see about having Bethany back out in August.
I'm checking my calendar so we're all on the same page here. So you're thinking 2 weeks is the 26th of July.
I didn't ask this before, and then I didn't look into the, as far as Zoom goes, would we be able to allow her to attend virtually?
No, there's no virtual conversation at all after June 30th.
I'm fine coming in person. It's not a problem.
Because I know it's not an easy drive to come all the way
It's not a problem.
from downtown Medina.
So I'm just thinking if we discuss it on the 26th, see what we discuss. If we're ready to have Bethany come back out, then we can schedule something on maybe the 9th if you're going to be in town.
Yep, just let me know. I should be here.
I will not be in town the 9th.
23rd.
Yeah, that's a possibility, the 23rd.
Okay, I'll hold that time just to keep it on my calendar. So,
And we could also, I mean, I don't want you to come up in an evening to a regular meeting.
I do it all the time. It's not a problem.
Let's see how it goes
That's
in
fine.
2 weeks.
That's fine.
That's why I pulled out my calendar, Bethany. I want to be respectful of your time too. But maybe if we can tentatively say the 23rd of
Sure.
August, that
Yep.
way we have some time.
And that's the 9:30 session.
Yes.
Okay. 9:30 a.m. I should say.
Yes. You'd be surprised. I've been here at 9:30 at any time. Perfect. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
All right, we are going to move right along because I have to leave at 10:30. Sergeant Scholl.
Any news?
Yeah, we'll get to that. First off, be seeking approval for expenses for Detective Kinney to attend. It's an annual conference he goes to every year. It's for the Ohio Police Juvenile Officers Association. Every year it's held in a different location around the state. This year is in Worcester, August 2nd to August 5th. Total cost of $595 includes the conference, lodging, and meals.
Very good.
Second one is also training. This is for Patrolman Jessica Parente. It's for developing effective leaders. We have had all the patrolmen go to some sort of leadership supervision schools to better themselves. That is in North Royalton, September 12th to the 13th for a total of $275. And last on my agenda, which was not forewarned to the board, I was notified yesterday evening after our new hire, Anthony Newbert. He had his first day yesterday, which was essentially orientation. After his 8-hour shift in the evening, he reached out to me to notify me he was not going to continue with us.
Wow.
He was lured back to Cleveland PD by a position from one of the supervisors there, so he chose to stay. So he has actually this morning dropped off a letter of resignation.
Okay.
So that's all I have.
Thank you. And the air conditioning is being,
Yeah, the company showed up this morning. They are working on replacing the AC unit and furnace that was approved at the last board meeting.
okay. Very good. Yeah, I know how safety services, fire and police, these are very, very interesting times for both
Indeed.
departments. And you can see easily how someone might be lured back with the right incentive.
Okay. And I mentioned a few this morning. I spoke to Chief Sentner this morning. He is doing well.
Very good.
And he will be welcomed back with a burst of cool air with the new air conditioner,
That's right.
He says he's not coming back till it's cold.
Well, that's disappointing.
It is a lot of time and effort.
Surprising, because I really thought his ultimate goal was to get out of Cleveland.
I was quite in shock yesterday evening, to say the least. So
Back to the drawing board.
back to square one.
Well, and I noticed that you guys have posted collectively with Montville and a couple of other departments that you are in the process
Correct.
looking for new hires.
Correct.
So I think that certainly will help with the social media component.
I heard last week that minimal responses to that so far for
Really?
that multi-agency testing. Yeah. So
Didn't Chief have another candidate he was looking at though?
we do. We have one that has turned in a packet that we're interested in. So I'm going to reach out to him today and get moving on that. So
In your spare time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sergeant Stroll. Anybody else have anything for Sergeant Stroll?
No.
Anybody from the audience have anything for Sergeant Stroll? I'm going to say you're free to go, sir.
I'm going to stick around in the air conditioning. I think.
Chief Grossenbaum.
Thank you guys all for coming. Saturday was wonderful and was truly a surprise. As I think I told each one of you, I had no clue. I saw the engine squad backing down. I'm like, why are these guys on a PR event without telling me like what's going on? It was a complete shock and
I was
surprise.
feeling you out last week when I talked to you.
Yeah, everybody was telling all the stories and how everybody. My wife's like, you truly had no clue. Like, I don't think I think she believes I knew. I'm like, nobody has said anything through all the people she's reached out to and everything else. And there was some very nice ones that could not attend, shared some nice messages to her to be forwarded on to me after the party. So I have two.
For the record, we were celebrating 25 years that Chief Grossenbaum has been with Hinckley Township on Saturday.
My wife threw a surprise party for me. So it was very nice. First is, I talked to Monique and I talked to Martha about it. Just need to get your guys' approval. So Tom Kolar is one of our firefighters, but he's also a fire inspector. So when he goes out during the fire inspectors, he bumps up to the fire inspector rate, and we follow in the parameters of the organizational minutes that he can't, a fire inspector can't work more than the 260 hours in a quarter. Anthony McCarrick and Josh Spluno are fire inspectors now. We sent them to school. I'd like to have them share into that collective 260 hours. Martha said it wouldn't be a problem as long as you guys approved. So, and we track the hours in our programming we use for payroll. It can be documented very well. And when they're only looking, each one is looking, they're kind of good how because Gabe's in charge of the inspection bureau, flipping back and forth every other week, 4 or 5 hours a piece for them. So we'll be well under that 260 hours, but I'd like to allow them to, they're inspectors, they're taking on that responsibility of going in the businesses and doing fire inspections. This helps with obviously the safety of the community, helps with the ISO, because now that we have more, ISO likes that the insurance rating likes more. And now that they're doing it, Gabe can go back later on and do audits, which ISO likes to see in the reporting process and everything else. So that's, I'm looking to have those guys bump up for the time they do their inspections. The tanker, I have not got anything back. They're still trying to find parts. The tanker went in for a PM last week.
Last week, I thought.
2 weeks ago, something like that. Time flies. There is going to be some major repairs. It's over 30 years old now. Obviously, we're trying to work on a grant, donation, anything to do it. So I'm waiting to see what the repair is going to be. The two major repairs, it passed its pump test, which is good, but the auto lube for the pump shaft, and then there's water in the gearbox. The water just trickles in. We haven't got a quote on it yet. It sounds like it could be significant. So we may have to have more conversation and potentially speed up the tanker process
Before the end of
the year, depending on what the price is on this.
Chief, could you just review again what the average wait time is from the time you order?
18 months to 24 months is what they're kind of saying. The one manufacturer, because we've met with 5 different manufacturers to talk to them, one said that if we were able to buy right now, or 3-4 weeks ago, the chassis would be in the second quarter of next year. There's demos out there on state bid. We're going to look at all options, but they get picked up.
To get a demo, the wait time on
Wait
that
time is, it's hit or miss on those. And tankers there's a lot more tankers typically being purchased out there because there's more rural fire departments out there. So and there's the tanker we need to fit our operational needs. There's a couple different styles. So some tankers don't have that need. So it's going to be hard to say if we're going to be able to find a demo. So and to meet the geographical needs because of our hills, we need the bigger engine to drive that weight of everything. So we'll see. I'm working on the bid spec now, so that if we do have to go to bid early, we have that ready to go. If we can find something on state bid, we'll, once we figure things out in the future. The only other thing is on Tuesday during the meeting, we have the special meeting beforehand for the bid opening. I will only be able to attend that. I've been asked to speak for the Medina County Firemen's Association to present for about an hour on aggressive interior search operations. So I will be going there they've been trying to get me all year to come in and speak. So I'm going to present on that.
Okay.
Okay.
And we'll touch base before.
Sure. Yep. And that's all I have. That's all I have. If something,
someone in your place, or you want me to just take care of your?
if you don't mind,
Okay.
I'll do that.
With the fire inspectors, will they be educated under Kolar or Gerbasi?
What do you mean?
The 2 new fire inspectors.
They're going to be mentored. They're going to follow Gabe around.
Okay.
And they've already shadowed beforehand on getting out there to see it. So they're going to be kind of reporting to him on the fire inspection stuff. We've already had a meeting on expectations and goals and everything else. And now that there's some projects that's have kind of taken the back burner because with Gabe or Tom, and Tom's busy with his full-time job and family and all that, we're going to be able to move some other things with like pre-planning and the long driveways and stuff like that throughout the community.
That'll be really helpful for
Yes,
Gabe too,
yes.
because he'll have some more time to do some of the fire code things
Yep.
that we request of him with
Yep.
zoning.
Yeah.
The tanker, what are we doing right now if we are called to?
The tanker works.
Okay.
The tanker does work. Everything that we went to that fire in Bath last week. We didn't have to pump with it. It's operable. It's the wear and tear will be. And like I said, that's where we're kind of waiting on that quote to see, is it something, if it's going to take us 2 years to repair, well, how much is it to repair? Is it $3,000 good for 2 years or not? So that's why I'm kind of waiting before I even anticipate what we're going to do with it once we get the repair quotes.
Thank you. And congratulations.
Thank
on
you
your
again.
Nomination for the Inspire
Yes.
Leadership Medina County.
Thank you very much.
I think one of 4 or 5 people in the
Mhm.
county for inspiring the county through service.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything for Chief Grossenbach?
Did you ask about the fire detectors? And
Oh, yeah, we met, the emergency license, was that what it was? So they're supposed to be every month you go up and you just press the button for 30 seconds to make sure they kick on is all that's required to do. And then if they don't go on, it's battery replacement, bulb replacement, or a unit replacement. All depends on what
so we're not paying someone to do that. They're going to take care of it. Is it?
That's, we did not finish.
we never finished the conversation.
I had suggested, since Chief's here, at least twice a month for meetings.
I mean, everything in the building should be, even in the bays and the old fire station should be checked on too. A lot of it, I can do it when I'm here. I can show Suzanne a lot of times, because I used to do it at my old company, and a lot of times somebody would just walk around with a stick and hold it up for 30 seconds to do it. So I can do it, but I can show others
You
too.
had the guys on duty too, right? Can they
Mhm.
not pop over for,
They could, I can talk to them about it, yeah.
It's your
and
specialty, so
press the button.
press the button, make sure.
But yeah, we'll figure something out.
Relative to that donation request, can I get a copy of what we sent?
I thought copies were made for everyone.
I did not get a copy.
Okay.
Okay.
I gave you a copy.
Yeah, we had a copy in the box that Jen picked up.
Very good.
That's all I have.
Thank you, guys.
We had a donation request of the Cleveland Foundation for $250,000 for the tanker. Anybody else from the audience have anything for Chief Rosenbaum?
Thank you. My phone's blowing up with people.
Thank you. Mr.
Thank you guys
Bahari.
very much. Have a good day.
Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
Just 2 updates for me. ASAP doors will be in tomorrow, pending rain, to do the door replacements. And the Kovac fence is on schedule. They said probably 4 to 6 weeks.
Good.
Excellent.
But other than that, that's about all I have.
Very good.
Did you reach out to Mike and let him know it's being replaced or not yet?
You said you were.
Oh,
Yeah.
you,
He was going to, yeah.
okay.
So,
There was-
I'll
there was
let him know.
discussion about it this
Are we,
weekend.
we're looking for their schedule? Is that what we're looking for?
I would just, well, they're not really going to probably be there during the nighttime. So
And even so, the work is along the street. It's not,
yeah, it's not really going to interfere with baseball. So
I'll reach out to him. I'll take care of it. And then the only other thing is we reached out to the architect for the Bethany Lane work, but I haven't heard back from them yet, asking if they would accommodate us to do the design work for that.
Okay. Very good. I'm looking for a copy of that letter for you guys. Anybody else have anything for Mr. Bahari? Thank you for your work. I know that the guys are out cutting grass right now on the side of the road. That's
Correct.
very helpful.
crack ceiling.
Oh, no, I saw them cutting grass.
Oh, that was ODOT.
Oh, is it? I
Yeah,
thought it was
that's
you
ODOT.
guys.
No, that's ODOT.
I've been waving at ODOT.
They're nice guys too.
Wonderful.
Do you
Thank
want to
very
stay in the
much.
air conditioning or you have somewhere to go?
Now I gotta go out
This is
in
the real
90-degree heat and help the boys,
Go put some more sunscreen on and
pretty much.
Very
All right.
good. Thank you, Mr. Bahari. Suzanne?
I have one thing for cemetery. I spoke to Pinnacle Monument Leveling Company, David Wasinski, and he has scheduled the monument leveling for Saturday, July 23rd. Prior to that, I need to mark 20 headstones that need to be leveled, and then get the confirmed amount of gravel that needs to be delivered to the cemetery. So I'll work with Mike. on
Thank
that
you.
as well.
Okay, and that would meet our timeline to have all of our paperwork submitted
It should.
by the end of August, or by August 1st, I believe is the date.
Very obligated to that,
Yeah,
because a motion was made to have that appropriation.
but they were asking for payment, showing an invoice of payment, and that was something we haven't done yet because the service hasn't been provided yet. Okay. Very good. Anything else?
Can we prepay?
I don't know.
I believe we need an invoice. And that's when services have been.
Once it, okay.
It was my understanding that if a resolution was made obligating that expense, that was part of the paperwork that would suffice, but I'd have to check with Martha.
Okay. Very good. We will have further conversation about that. Thank you. Anything else?
That's it.
We have a fee structure meeting tomorrow morning. It's our last fee structure meeting for zoning, and we are sitting down with Marcus Fisher and Joe Calabro for their insight as to the definitions of extensions of meetings versus, and I don't have the other term in front of me, continuations, because what are we charging for each one and how are they defined? So that will be finalized tomorrow. Also, the indigent burial status, you had sent me that email. with regard to that indigent burial that was done a year ago. And I had conversation with Carlson and just explained to them that we have reached out to the family multiple times. I believe former trustee Burns reached out, you reached out, Suzanne had reached out, have not heard anything. And she made a suggestion that we just pay the fees for the indigent burial and have them reimbursed by the state. And I said, well, we have no proof that this person is indigent because they haven't taken the time to fill out the paperwork. So at this time, because the Hinckley Township was not a part of the decision-making process, the family was, I have asked that Hinckley Township kind of be removed from the conversation until they decide to fill out the paperwork and submit it to Hinckley.
So two things. One is I don't think the state reimbursement covers what Carlson is charging in any way, shape, or form. I want to say it's like $750. But the other piece was that request had to be submitted within 60 days of
Receiving the application.
the application had to be submitted to the state for reimbursement within 60 days of something that the funeral home did, releasing it or something to that effect. The other is when I had a conversation with Carlson, is a daughter, or the daughter had asked Carlson to pick up the remains. So we weren't involved.
Exactly. And that was what I stated in the email. Did I copy you on that email? I can forward it to you. And that's what I said in the email, is that really Hinckley Township has not been a part of the decision-making process. We've just tried to assist this family member.
Right.
And we have not heard anything. And because we have no proof that they're indigent, because they haven't filed the paperwork, there's nothing more we can do.
Yeah. I mean, if we were the ones who had asked them to come take care of it, then it's on us. But at this point, I think you're correct in that.
Thank you. I agree that it's kind of on the family at this point. So that's cemeteries. Very good. Does anybody have any questions for Suzanne?
The other day that you had said there was a burial, and I thought you were reaching out to Mike. So is that something, are you funneling through us then to Mike?
Well, because I was out of town.
She was on vacation.
And I didn't know what their service department staff's schedule was. I figured either you or you would know if someone had requested to have the time off. I just wanted to make sure we would have at least 2 service department staff available for that Tuesday.
Okay, I didn't know if you guys talked manager to manager or...
I was just trying to be respectful because I knew it was the holiday for Mike as well. So.
We don't care about Mike.
It worked out really well, and I appreciate you working on your vacation, because I typically don't even look at my emails on Saturday, but because you were able to get it to us so quickly, we were able to make that work. Yeah, I texted Mike right away and we coordinated it, so it was squared away. Yeah, but with it being a holiday weekend, it was very kind of last minute. Yeah. All right. Anybody else have anything for Suzanne?
I just had a real quick question. The proctor schedule that I sent out, I noticed that, Suzanne, you had forwarded it to Jack. Do you both want the proctor schedule?
Yes, it's actually on my list of things that I wanted to ask, is that if you could email it to me, like for today, I don't know, we don't have anybody on, so I'm proctoring. I have to go at 10:30, so I'm going to leave my computer with you guys since I'm into virtual. You're such an optimist. I love that about you. But I know that Marcus Fisher had asked me for the zoning commission meeting. He said, who's our proctor? And I didn't know what to tell him. And I think we ran into issue with that meeting.
Well, Jackson was here for the zoning meeting.
Jackson was here, but I didn't know beforehand who it was going to be. And he had asked. Jackson was running the internal, which typically I've been having a person on the board do. Marcus has done it in the past. And then I don't think Joe Calabro does it. Typically it's Jeff Hoop who does it for the BZA. But he forgot to unmute it. So the first 3 to 4 minutes of our recording.
Oh yeah, I was on that one.
Didn't record.
And I typed in, I was like, is something wrong? No, I chatted to whoever was running. I said,
Oh, it's Jackson running
is there
it.
something wrong with the audio or is it me? And he's like, all of a sudden, bing.
You were the one who gave him the
Well, I
heads up.
thought, because I'm so tech savvy, that I was like, I am doing something wrong here.
I've done that before,
You know,
so I get it.
I did get Jen Amber, and she said when you're physically here, you can't hear what the virtual
Right.
audience is hearing. So she said maybe having an earbud, so occasionally he can just check to see what he's hearing, because even sometimes the microphones aren't set correctly and there's some mumbling, or I watched the zoning commission on our video, and Marcus was sitting back, back in his seat, and there was a lot of rumbling because he was just away from the microphone.
And he's
So,
soft spoken.
yeah. So, I mean, if the proctor can occasionally, if they're here present, check with an earbud. That was Jen's suggestion.
So for email, I would say send the schedule to them and then copy anybody who uses the proctor.
That'd be helpful.
The chair of zoning and then the two of us. That's probably all you need to do.
There were a few that I watched when somebody was at the podium and they're too close to the microphone. It
Yes.
was like overpowering and distorted to where you couldn't
Because
understand them.
they think it's a mic for the room.
Right.
They don't realize it's for the virtual.
They get closer.
And why am I not
closer,
loud?
and
It's like-
closer.
Blown out speed and you can't.
Yeah. But, and then Jen Auburn did come in when she first started as a proctor and said she wants these like in the middle of the table so that you can hear the board better.
Oh.
Just little things that we've kind of learned along the
And
way.
then the virtual tech, are the proctors aware of that the virtual audience might be emailing them with questions because they're having a difficult time getting on or not?
Yeah, there's a
That-
chat box.
The chat box.
But there's also instruction to contact the virtual tech through email. Are they aware of that or not?
I never heard of that.
That's one of the
I think
reasons why we're
easiest
trying to get up
method is through the chat,
procedure.
but we have instruction for folks to,
Now, I thought we talked about this and the virtual tech emails go to you.
I don't get anything.
Oh, no, we talked about it. You and I talked about it. And you said nobody's ever sent an email to
No,
that email address. Because
I
I
don't.
said, what's the
I
password?
don't know. I've never been in that email address. I don't
You
know.
would have to ask Jen.
Jen.
who-
Jen didn't know the password.
Well, she's the one who set it up, I think.
25,000 unread emails.
At least. And none of them are from citizens.
But if chatting is the better method,
I think chatting is probably the better method because you can see it right away.
then we can update our instructions to remove virtual tech email option. Does that
I
make
agree with
sense?
that.
Yeah, and I think best practice is to kind of give this internal iPad to somebody on the board so that they're unmuting when they're ready and just making sure that they're verbally asking the proctor, whether here or virtually, are you ready? Or can you please let everyone into the room and start recording, just so we can have some type of a method so that we don't skip a process. Because I will typically shoot Lisa a text and say, are you ready? Or you'll hear me say, here, Lisa, you can let everybody in. All right, anything else for Suzanne?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you guys mind if I go first? Because I have to leave in 9 minutes. My daughter has an 11 o'clock doctor's appointment that I made 1 year ago.
Okay.
And she has another one in 2 weeks at the next work session. The non-employee handbook, you both got notification that was actually a typo. She had said she was going to have that done at the end of June, but it's actually the end of July. So we'll look for that here. Meeting minutes, Martha sent an email saying that she's going to be doing a hard copy of the meeting minutes, and I would prefer to get an email version. I understand her thought process and not making big changes to the meeting minutes. But I would just prefer an email copy. I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on that.
I would say, okay, if she sends it to us in advance, but we make no changes until
That's
we're
fine.
together.
Yeah, I just like to save it to my computer.
Sure.
So I just wanted to make sure you guys were all in the same page with that. I think it's handy to be able to access it from home too. Monique, did you have any thoughts on that?
She just explained to me why she wanted the hard copy, which I think with Jack's idea of just don't make any changes until the actual meeting, I think that serves the same purpose.
Yeah,
Right.
the whole back and forth thing was.
I understand
Yeah, okay.
completely. Yeah, I just
I
prefer
had
to
to create
have
a whole folder from all the emails back and forth with the meeting minutes.
Okay, and we have two subdivisions that will go to Medina County Planning Commission. One is Reserve at Pine Valley, which is the Pine Hills Golf Course. That's at the corner of West 130th and
Grafton.
North of Forest.
Forest. I was going to say, I think it's Forest. It's 31 sublots. This is the second phase, and all the lot size exceeds zoning there, which, as you know, is 3/4 acre in that area. Stony Hill, which is Stony Hill and West Mattingly, that's 24 lots on 74 acres. So that's another one. Lot sizes exceed the zoning there. So I just wanted to make you guys aware of that.
Was there an update on Serenity Lake? What they were
Serenity
appealing?
Court.
Serenity Court.
Yes.
They were appealing ODOT's decision.
Yeah, they're appealing at the state. They were there last week appealing the state's decision because ODOT does not want them to come off of 303.
Mhm.
And I think part of that is because they showed that they could have come off of Don Pre and they flipped the design.
Mhm.
So we'll see what happens with that.
Oh, so they didn't get an answer yet.
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
And we are finalizing the cemetery grant. I am working on grants for abandoned houses. I think we have 3 of them in the township. And lastly, I have the memorandum from OHM, and I don't know if we're going to have enough time to dig into it. Have you guys been able to reread the memorandum?
Mhm.
Do you have any comments or considerations that you'd like to discuss?
I think we just file it as a document we received out of this process and make no changes to the current plan. Don't add it as an addendum or anything. Just keep it as a reference document.
I didn't see any really changes to the 2015 plan, with the exception of creating the future use map into the actual zoning map, which,
But everything in there basically refers to zoning. I don't think it has any merit being in the comprehensive plan.
no, like I didn't understand the statement, consider general updates to township zoning code. They're always working on updating zoning. They're always doing. I didn't find a lot of value in really
And
much.
considering what I've heard from the members, that it seems that they kind of went off on their own and formulated their response to us. And I don't know if that was the direction they were given at the onset.
No, we didn't give them any direction to do anything.
Nothing.
No. We signed a contract and you were a part of the process in January when it started.
What do you both think?
Well, we received an email from Richard Pearl, so I have his thoughts here in front of me, but I tend to agree with you that a lot of the things that are in the memorandum are already in the 2015 comprehensive plan. And one of the objectives is to start matching the future land use map to the zoning map. That was one of the objectives, LU4, action LU41, and action ED11.
But that's talking about having zoning make changes.
But I'm saying it's already in there. You're exactly right. Zoning commission is supposed to look at this document.
Not that document.
Yep, they're supposed to look at this document as as the comprehensive plan, the 2015 comprehensive plan, as a foundation for all zoning regulations. This document is restating what's already in our comprehensive plan.
With a twist.
I think that almost everything in here is already stated in the plan. That's just my, we've got Mr. Pearl's email here, and I haven't responded to you because I was really going through it literally line by line, word by word. And I had intent to respond to you today, but I'm glad that you're here. Consider the development and design guideline standards. And the design standards you had said really aren't but you felt it was overreaching, this recommendation from OHM. But if we look at the comprehensive plan, page 38, action LU21, it's specific to guideline standards. Page 56, action CI 3.1 is specific to these standards. Page 57, action CI 3.3 is specific to these standards. It's already in the plan. I feel that this document is basically saying, start doing what's in the plan. That's just how I read it.
But
Is that
That being-
what we were expecting?
no, that being said, that wasn't the mission. The mission was to look at the existing plan and see if it needed an overhaul.
So the only thing that I think in this audit document, this memorandum, is, you know, they want us to make put more language into our zoning resolution as it relates to conservation developments that is not currently in the 2015 plan. And those regulations, if you look at what we've been doing here in Hinckley Township over the past probably 4 years, really are trying to be more specific with respect to the conservation development. So for instance, we put the yield plan in 2019. We increased the setbacks last year. We've been making those changes already. We haven't had a conservation development since Redwood. And I think that the ideology of design standards was specific to Redwood, because you've got Walden Pond, you've got Wakefield Run, and there wasn't as much complaining about that because Wakefield Run has a white picket fence. It's that rural feel. Walden is set back behind a beautiful old farmhouse. It's the rural feel. Where Redwood was right here on 303. So I could see from planning how they saw that the complaints that happened here at our first meeting about that conservation development, you can see it clear as day, which is one of the reasons why we increased the setbacks. So that's really the only thing in here that I see that is encouraged, is not in the 2015 plan, but has been done since the 2015 plan.
I mean, I can say it again. I don't think it accomplished its mission. What we got out of it, came out of that whole effort was information that they're saying, well, address your zoning regulation. And that was not the mission.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable amending the plan with any of these.
Do we agree to include the survey results from this audit into an amendment to the plan?
No, that goes with this. That's my,
You think the survey results should be,
for consideration in the future, but not attached to that plan.
well, for consideration in the future, they would probably need to be attached to the plan.
I disagree. I don't know why you can't have it as a standalone document.
Yeah, I
Why
agree.
can't the survey results be freestanding? Like Jack said.
I have to think on it, to be honest with you. I thought that was something that really should be included as a part of the time and the work and the money spent. And it is the most tangible way for us to measure what folks in Hinckley want since the 2015 comprehensive plan.
My concern with it is the questions that were made up on the survey is, you know, one of the biggest responses, which was, I think, 72% of the residents are saying no more land conservation developments. And then coming back saying, well, we actually can't say no because we would open ourselves up for, you know, potential lawsuits. Why was it even in the survey then? If that's something that we can't stop. I would think that maybe it would have been more clear wording of increasing the setbacks. I know it was something that was discussed last year by the previous board, and the zoning recommendation of 500-foot setback was declined, and it went to a 300-foot setback. So I think it would have been
Secondary to legal and planning.
I think it would have been more beneficial had we had questions on there that are changes we could make.
And I agree with you, but the steering committee was in charge of the questions, and we all had a say in those questions too. I mean, we were at the meeting. If it was poorly worded question, and we didn't want it in there, why didn't we say anything?
I made some suggestions, but it was after 10 o'clock and people wanted to go home at that point. So that's...
Well, I think the 10 o'clock hours when we were really putting together the introduction to the survey. I have to go because my daughter has an appointment. I would love to discuss it more, and I would like to think on it a little more as to the idea of keeping the survey separate from the comprehensive plan. It's not something I considered, and I'd like to think about it a little bit more.
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to leave my computer so that you can run your virtual. I'll be back to pick it up.
We'll leave it in the office unless we're still here discussing.
Yeah, I can swing back to after the doctor.
Did you want to order anything on Amazon?
I'll jump on there.
That's why I'm not so good there.
It's Prime Day too.
Prime Day.
That's right.
Thank you, guys. Does anybody have any questions for me real quick before I go? Okay. Thank you, guys.
Just consider at the next trustee meeting, I'm going to, if there's nothing on the schedule, recommend skipping over the August 2nd meeting because of election.
That was on my agenda.
Yeah, I think that I thought we had kind of decided to do that.
We didn't.
Oh,
We
okay.
said we were going to discuss it later, and then we never discussed it. It's the
Because
number.
would support that.
you wanted to wait until it got closer.
I would support
Yes.
that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, if there's nothing, I wish I would have known I would have gone on vacation that week.
If we don't have to hire another officer.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. Have a
See you.
great day.
It was actually on my agenda last Tuesday. It was the top of my agenda, and I forgot it. So today I started. So it's at the top of my agenda. So you stole it.
Okay, so you're talking about discussing the August 2nd meeting?
The August 2nd meeting, the regular meeting, we're going
It
to
conflicts with the election.
we're just going to cancel it. Okay. Are you ready for me? Or did you want to go? Do you have anything else from my list you want to talk about? Okay.
Yeah.
So this was actually for Martha. I'm going to call Martha to see how she wants to handle it. But I don't know if you remember, we talked about this a couple of times since the beginning of the year that Google is going to start charging us monthly for our emails. It actually started the beginning of July, but there's this grace period of a month that it's free. So August, it's going to start. It's going to be $3 per month per user for the first year. So August of 2022 until August of 2023, it's going to be $3 per month per user. Then next year, it's going to go up to $6 per month per user. We currently have 20 users in the system. Now, what Brian did not know initially, even people who are suspended, we have to pay. So we had talked about that back. We talked about that back in February. We deleted a bunch of email accounts that are no longer being used, but we still have Burns's, Let's Go, Schulte. We saw all those emails right now that are suspended that we're going to be paying on because we have to for records retention.
Wait, can we archive everything and download it? I would think you would be able to.
Archive is something that haunts me, actually. I don't know how to pull anything out of archive.
I
So
wasn't asking you.
I don't know, and honestly, I don't know how time consuming that would be. And where are you archiving to store that data? And then how do you access it? I don't know anything about it. But if it's a timely.
We can ask don't we have IT
So
people?
$3 a month times 12 is 60, and it's going to take 4 hours to archive one individual. I mean, there's,
No, I'm saying the suspended ones,
yes,
like Burns.
right. Yeah.
So, you go in and you do an archive dump and it goes into an electronic file. It separates it into folders and everything, and it should be doable. No, it should just be a simple click, but it wouldn't be something that we would have Lighthouse as. Is it Lighthouse? Yeah.
Or Brian Lacko's the one who's
Yeah.
dealing with all this.
And just, is this something we can do? Can we download all this, put it on an electronic file somewhere and hold it?
How many users do we have again, please?
20.
20 active.
So my question is, and this is more, I had it on my agenda because it was more of a question for Martha, is billing preference. If we want to be paper billed every single month and do a check, or just give them Suzanne's credit card and they can auto bill us for that. So I will talk to Martha and see her preference on that. I'm assuming the board doesn't really care because Martha's the one who pays all the bills. So it's going to be however she wants to handle it.
Correct.
And if it's 20 times 3 is
$60 a month, but then next year it's going to jump up to $120 a month, which is a lot.
120 a month per email?
No, 120 total. It's $6 per user per month, starting next year, which is a lot. I mean,
We need to talk about creating our own domain and then having our own email.
maybe talk to Mark about it.
Yeah.
I will send them an email after the meeting because that's touch base with them anyways, which segues right into my next point, which is the website. I just wanted to, I was confused after our meeting last week with the website in terms of the community tab. I think you had mentioned maybe doing government services, or maybe Melissa did, having links for government services.
I had said I was okay with government, no private.
Okay. Which ones? Because there's a lot. And that was what I kind of wanted to work on so I can send it to them of what, like Board of Elections, the courts.
If you look at our directory that we have on the website, it would probably give you a good idea of what we currently have. And then, like I know in our zoning tab, we have the building department and the engineers. The health department's listed. County commissioners listed. So that might be a good guide.
Under the government.
That's a fantastic website.
How'd you like that? Okay.
I think it's directory.
Let's see, we have
There's a directory.
banks and post offices, churches.
But that doesn't necessarily.
It's not a
I mean, that's
link, it
how
just says it's in the community, right? Or you link into it.
We have a URL for it.
That's the link.
But when they break, we don't know when that happens. We're not going in monthly to check to see what's.
The churches have links.
Yeah, I don't think we should.
I agree. I've been thinking a lot about that and separation of church and state, right? Remove the churches, just have the school.
Even some of the utilities, I think.
Bless you. Now we do have,
But to somebody else's point, if you put a school in and then somebody says, well, I have my school of blah, 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 you put them into,
but it would be private. And you're saying no to the private. the schools are,
Okay, public schools, right.
right.
Okay, yeah.
But like what we currently have on here right now is we have the Hinckley Arts and Crafts Club, we have the Hinckley Chamber of Commerce, we have the Hinckley Garden Club, the Hinckley Women's Club, Medina County Office for Older Adults. Like, I mean,
That's a county office. That's,
okay, but the Art and Craft Club, the Women's Club, the Garden Club, the Chamber of Commerce, we're saying no to none of this.
I would think we could, is Chamber of Commerce, is that private?
Well, it's a club. I mean, it's club.
Does
The
the
Chamber of
township allocate any monies to any of those organizations?
Mm-mm.
Well, I mean,
Mm-mm. No. So they
What are you
technically,
seeing on some of those other campuses you saw?
on the other ones, they had clubs within the cities, Boy
Within the
Scouts,
township.
Girl Scouts. Yeah, I mean, well, and the ones that I was looking at were city sites that we were using. Mark thought it was a good idea, but I completely understand your point of it also is this could be huge because where do you draw the line with that? So I completely understand that as well. You know, like the car club, garden club, women's club, the list could go on and on and on.
well, and there's nothing wrong with posting information. However, we're never notified if information changes with these organizations. So that's one of the things that we're faced with maintaining an updated website.
But I agree with you. That is why I suggested having not their contact information, having a link to their site.
And that's what she's saying, if the link gets broken.
But it's easier to update. If it's just a link, it's just easier to update.
Yeah.
If you're just shooting them to a page,
And it's ultimately not our responsibility if your link is broken. I mean, it's,
Right.
so, I mean, but I think like none of this should be on there if we're going to do just government services and schools, because school is a government service. So if we're going to do that and the schools, then none of this stuff should be on there.
Add something to it.
No, it's not your turn. Yes.
In my opinion, when you have a website that's for Hinckley Township, and I know there's a lot of, just in my opinion, as far as you want people to come to your website and see what Hinckley Township is about. You want to see what kind of community is there. It's not just the government sites that you want to see when you go to Hinckley Township. You want to be able to see, well, if I move to Hinckley Township, if I buy this 5-acre property or 6-acre, whatever it is, what kind of community events are there? What kind of community clubs are there? And I understand we're not, we're a government entity. However, we want to bring people to Hinckley because of our community. It's small town, big hearts. That's supposed to be somehow relevant to what our community is about.
Agreed. And that was why I supported having the links to the other, because I think, we've said it a couple of times, maybe we haven't said it in these meetings, but we've said it in our meetings with proximity, is this new website, the updated website, it's our advertisement for the township. And it should be a one-stop shop. So if you're looking for something in Hinckley, you can find it on our site. That's what's going to get the reoccurrence of people coming back here multiple times and telling people about it. So I agree. I still think it's a good idea, but I also see Jack and Melissa's point of where do you stop? Not so much about the updated information, because if it's a link, it's a link, but where do you stop with it? And as more and more clubs are being created, and I also think, I thought about it because we talked about, like Facebook and, people that don't have a website, but they have a Facebook page. I think it should be strictly websites, not Facebook. Leave Facebook out of it since the township, the board decided not to redo our Facebook page and have that reopened. Then I don't think that we should have linked to Facebook pages, websites only.
That's and I hear your point,
It's just a point.
No, I get it.
We still have 2 months also of working with them, at least 2 months. So we can always add that in. And I'm not trying to make that point again that we discussed at the last meeting. I just want to get clarification with what we already had decided. I'm going to tell them not to have the stuff on here.
As we move forward, isn't there an option to add or delete?
Yes.
So there's the option.
Perfect. Yep. Okay. So are we agreed? I'm going to tell them.
Just say sound like it's undecided.
Yeah.
We've agreed to not decide.
Agree to not decide.
We are agreed. I'm going to let them know, like, we're not putting this stuff on it. It's going to be government services. And I was just trying to get a feel from you. Like, should I just put, instead of like the Medina County courts and everything, just put a link to the Medina County, the court system, courthouse?
What does the county commissioner's website provide? Because if you give them a view that gives you all that information, I know, having a secondary spot to check, but so then there's no redundancy, I guess. People just know to go to Medina County and the commissioner's website, and that kind of encompasses everything.
You have Cleveland Metro Parks on your list?
Metro Parks were not on the list. Just that, they were.
They have a lot. I mean, we could just put the link to the Medina County.
And you can have a disclaimer that says to access information about voting and whatever the township would want, then.
Well, see, all those are different. Board of Elections is different. Medina County.
But is it included in the county commissioner's link or?
Well, it's just the Medina County website, and it's got everything.
And we could look at it in more detail and select the items that you want to have available.
And each elected has their own, under them, their own page. So like if you go
Do you link through is it like an umbrella underneath?
No, they'll have their own, like BMV has its own, the clerk of courts, the courts themselves have their own.
Yeah, like they have like Board of Elections. It just redirects you to.
They have links on
the
that,
BOE
yeah.
site.
Yeah, so it's just an umbrella underneath.
Nope, it does.
Okay.
And that's what I'm thinking of for ours. But we could just put the Highland Local School. We could put a link for Highland Local Schools, and we could put a link for Medina County, Ohio, because the Medina County, Ohio's got every link on it. I just hate to send them to another website to find another website.
Multi-step.
Clicks. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we can discuss it. We can discuss it later. I just wanted to. You want me to do that? I'll tell them. Link it.
If I want to know what I need to file with Medina County Domestic Relations Court, I'm not going to the Hinckley Township website.
Absolutely. But Board of Elections, I would definitely see how that would be useful to have that on the,
I'm not going here to find that either.
you're not going on our website?
To find Board of Elections? I never would.
Okay.
I want to know what buzzer day is.
Yeah.
If I go to Hinckley Township.
We are going to have an event.
Is it ever not March
And
15th?
we advertise that.
Right.
Well, it's always
I mean,
March
that's,
15th,
what, you know,
breakfast.
I go all around the country.
Buzzard links. I mean,
There
it's
are
not
no
always
buzzards here before March 15th.
No,
Let me-
never. Okay.
They're waiting at the border.
I have a question about the Metro Park. Is the Cleveland Metro Park a governmental organization?
Yes.
Or are they private property owners?
I'm fairly
Getting
certain
into
that
a
Metro.
fine point.
Yeah.
Pardon?
I'm getting into a fine point, but I thought I'd bring it up.
I thought they were government.
Well, why?
Sing out. What do you got?
They're not elected.
Well, it doesn't mean that they're not government.
I mean, the board is not elected.
I think county property tax
It is.
funded.
It is, the Judge Russo is the final for the board. But are they a governmental organization? And you don't have to answer that today, but consider it, period.
It's a separate political subdivision of the state of Ohio.
Yeah, right.
Eric, he answered it.
Separate
I'm sorry.
political, it's a separate political subdivision of the state of Ohio.
So yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'll accept that.
Next thing I wanted to talk about, final thing is, so back in the day, the Chamber of Commerce used to host like a movie night at Bronzers Park. They have like big inflatable screen and stream it for like kids movies. So people could come here with their blankets and, you know, watch an outdoor movie. Medina does it
Yes.
a couple times in the summer. And the Chamber of Commerce, I've emailed them a couple of times throughout the years, and they said they're just not going to do it. Again, there's no plans for it. So I wanted to know our board's thoughts of the township hosting an outdoor movie night. See how that goes. So just a community event for families that's free. Come and enjoy movie on the hill at Bronzers Park. Get a popcorn, because I do have a big popcorn machine. What do you
Why
think?
wouldn't you?
For occasions such as this, I've got the big popcorn machine. Actually, a friend does, but I'm going to use it. So I
Well,
wanted to know
my-
your thoughts on it.
My first thought, which is always, is risk management. I mean, do you need an insurance for an event like that? Because there will be a cost associated with that.
I do know that if you have a movie, you have to get the rights to do that movie, and it does cost, it's a nominal fee.
You have to if it's a free event.
Secondly, who's going to run it?
Me.
Just by yourself? Who's going to do the setup, everything? You can do it all? Guns.
Not my husband.
Does he know that you're saying?
No, Jim, you're going to help me set up for the movie. So I have to get a lot more information on it, but I thought before I started getting the information, like, you know, the screen, the projector, movie rights, seeing if there was any interest or if it's a heck no. I mean, is it any more, I don't know about the liability or
I don't
anything
know
like
either.
that. I would think it would be less. I mean, what do they do for trick or treat in the center of town?
We're not doing that.
Right, the chamber does it, right, but there's going to be risk associated with that, right? Probably even more risk.
That I don't know. I cannot answer that.
Can we talk to Martha?
Sure.
You're always doing
You said somebody else in the county does it?
Medina.
Okay. As I say, I know Berea does a huge one like weekly. They may be a resource to reach out to as well. Co-Lake, they do it. Yeah.
I was thinking.
And maybe they'll rent their movie for 2 nights and loan it to you.
Maybe. If I can sweet talk them. Well, I'll talk to Martha about it and see. But assuming we have answers to all of that, which are great, and it's all free, what do you think?
I would not object to it.
Okay. And you are not doing the trustee corner this month, correct?
I am not.
Okay. I was up next month, so I'm just going to assume that I'm going to do it this month. That's all I got.
And the only other thing that I had was, I know a number of folks asked about having an additional meeting for this
I don't think.
because of their concerns.
Yeah.
I think we file it as a standalone document and say it is what it is. I mean,
I heard some people say that they were hoping for a public meeting. They said it at our last meeting that they were hoping for.
I disagree with the information in there relative to the map changing with zoning. I don't think there's anything in there that says you need to do it today. It's for future consideration.
And it wasn't even part of the survey.
And it was not part of the survey. So I don't know where that came from. Like I said, if OHM decided to put that in on their own, that's up to them. But
Well, I thought Natasha had a good point I had not thought of, is that was one of their initial recommendations, like their very first meeting, is make the future use map part of our zoning map. We haven't talked to one resident or done one survey. This is our recommendation. And then ta-da, at the end, it's the same recommendation, which there was not a single question in the survey about this. So I like your idea of not including it in the plan. I don't think it should be amended into the plan. I think it's
I initially thought that through conversation, though, that then that becomes part of it. And I don't think it should be part of it. I
should become its own.
Because of the issues that I have with content. So
I think it's thank you so much for your recommendation. I'll take it under advisement. I was just thinking about this morning, like I didn't respond to your email. I read it 3 times.
That's fine.
Because I was trying to find something that I didn't agree with. So it took me a couple times to go through it. Your emails are always very thorough and very thoughtful. So I agreed with just about everything.
And I agree with Jack's recommendation that if you somehow add it onto the plan, it becomes baggage on the plan.
Mm-hmm.
It can be interpreted and or misinterpreted, taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
So just leave it separate, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
it is what it
We're
is.
gonna pay the bill, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to ask for changes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here's Melinda.
Mm-hmm.
You should ask Melinda if she has insurance for Halloween.
Halloween. They start walking in. Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think it should be.
And with all due respect, we'll listen to whatever Melissa wants to bring, but and she needs time to digest what we said. And so, any further business, Lynn? Folks?
Well, I came with some comments on that recommendation, but in all fairness, since Melissa's not here, I don't think want to hold them off, or I can share them and I can repeat them, but
Well, why don't you share them now? Because maybe she'll watch the recording of the meeting. And then if she needs you, if she doesn't, then we can always hear it again at our meeting next week. But I would say that's what I want. Any comments now, because it gives us a week to process, because I'm certain that we will discuss this next week
at your regular trustee meeting.
at the regular meeting.
So I agree with the, comments about the recommendation document. I just put it aside. I looked at the results of the survey instead, because to me that has the value. And I felt that if you identify the strongest responses, the 75-25 responses, that gives you a good idea of what people are very solid about, and determine what you can do to address those things. So again, the survey doesn't have to be part of the comprehensive plan. Rather, it can be a tool to say, what should we be looking at here in terms of, as it turns out, zoning? Because there's really nothing in the recommendation. There's nothing that came out that said, these are all the things that are wrong in the comprehensive plan. Not to say that you may not want to look at it at some point, but I think that those results pointed more to zoning. So for instance, conservation developments. So you can't get rid of conservation developments, but maybe you can still tighten up your zoning resolution, your zoning code, to achieve the desired results from the survey. So, you can say, well, we did the 300-foot setback. We did this, but you do it in response to something that has occurred as opposed to doing it proactively.
It's reactive instead of proactive.
Absolutely. So I think that looking at that conservation development zoning section and just saying, how can we tighten this up to achieve what people want, without, you can't say no more CDs or whatever, but do that. Senior housing was another area that people felt very strongly about. That wasn't even touched on in the recommendation. But again, that's something you can't get rid of, and that's got some federal protection wrapped around it. But you can have you can have design standards. You can also indicate under what zoning districts, whatever, you can have senior housing. So you can still kind of wrap some language around there. And that really comes down to having design standards overall, especially for town center. I think it was Mr. Pearl who at Zoning Commission brought up, I'm sorry, I'm going to hold off on what I'm going to say about you. The Zoning Commission talked about creating a new zoning district for town center that could have its own specific design standards. And therefore, you can make town center unique and distinguish it from the other business districts. And when you do that, you can do things that limit the square footage of building area used for specific types of businesses such as retail, banks, medical, dental offices, or whatever, so that you don't have a humongous, overwhelming building. You mentioned Berea. I think Berea, I love Berea. I mean, Berea is a city, but if you look at their downtown, it's a conglomeration of different structures that were built over different time periods, very eclectic, I guess you could say. But yet the very town center is, has a different feel about it. It's, the restaurants and office spaces are all small. And so, you create that walkable feeling. Now, of course, we can't, we don't have a town center. We don't have that landmass. But if you develop some nice design standards, you can, limit the size of how big you want entities to be, so you don't have, some big square rectangular storefront, which doesn't achieve that small town, center feel. So I think that's real important to look at and to promote. And another area that has that same kind of potential issue for maybe things not being the way they are is the northeast corner of 606 and Bellis, which now I'm going to say Mr. Pearl brought up at zoning commission, creating a B4 business district specific to them. And, that's, I like that idea, very interesting idea because right now, everything is B2, 130th corner, Bellis, 606, and downtown. So you create a B3 for town center. You can say what you can or cannot have in there, that's permitted or what may be conditionally permitted or maybe not allowed. And that could be very different from what's at 606 and Bellis. So, because you do have to consider that that's a lot of acreage there, which could turn potentially into something people don't want, especially almost across from Hinckley Reservation. So I think those are things, the takeaways from the survey that the township really maybe can focus on in a proactive fashion. Some of my caveats are that we should not get caught up in some of these concepts of why are we in a hurry? We haven't done anything all this time. Well, to me, that's not being proactive. Then you get yourself caught up when somebody else comes in and wants to do something and you have no tools, you have nothing that the zoning department, the zoning commission can fall back on to say, hey, this is how we operate here. And also the other trap is there's no land left to do that, whatever that is. There's no more land to create a conservation development. There can always be more land. Obviously, people didn't think that Skyland would turn into a conservation development. So never believe it's not going to happen. The other thing is be careful about piecemealing things, because then you're just kicking the can down the road. And I'm losing my voice. So I'm done.
Grab a bottle of water out of the fridge if you want.
Yes.
Thank you for, there were a couple of comments that you brought up that are things that I've just been thinking of in the last week, and that is the design standards with senior housing, but also the design standards within the center of town. Something because I like the idea. I like Marcus's overall idea of, creating more design standards so that everything, looks a little more quaint, a little bit more small town. But is it going to work? Because when is the last time a new building was built in the center of town? And there's no design standard. You can do whatever you want. I mean, now you've got to have your parking behind the building instead of in front of it. So is that going to make it even more difficult to develop the center of town? Because there is a lot that is already currently zoned business that is not developed. And I really don't think people understand that. What is currently developed business versus what is already zoned business, there's a huge, huge gap. Mm-hmm. And then the future use it blows my mind every time I look at this picture of where we currently are now and what OHM is recommending we go to. The conservation developments, I thought you brought up a good point about I agree with you. I think it's important to be proactive instead of reactive with it. Melissa pointed out that they increased the setbacks last year. Well, that was last year, maybe not enough. That 72% of the township is saying no more to them. So I think I still like the 500-foot setback. Walden Pond has it, that's a crude source right there. And don't quote me on this, Mr. Pearl, you would probably know adequately. But I think like Wakefield's like a 470-foot setback on the west side, 375 on the east side, something like
I
that.
don't think it's that much.
Yeah, it's not that much.
But I think the bigger setbacks are.
Because the previous trustees looked at the other conservation developments.
Yeah, I remember.
And 500 was not there, but 300, 275 was doable. Martha thought 300 would be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
That's my
we're
recollection.
talking about infrastructure too, and the whole picture. you're adding more street to accommodate that setback.
Yeah,
And then that's 500 feet
Yeah.
more of concrete.
not 500 feet more.
Well,
It's
just, I mean,
200
Yeah.
more. I think that those bigger setbacks, and I think Walden Pond works because the setback is so large, and also there's that hill. It's a little bit below that hill. So I think that is something that makes it more hidden, so it doesn't stand out so much to people. And then the B4 area, I'm so happy you brought that up at the zoning meeting, because I was sitting back there thinking, why can't we just make it a B4 with Buzzard Cove? Because something Matt Marzullo brought up was something I hadn't even thought of before, and that is currently right now, if we made that, if we create the B3 district and we put Buzzard Cove in that B3, he brought up, you could have a shopping plaza there, a small plaza, but a shopping plaza there. Whereas I thought your suggestion of the B4, we could have it strictly, it's outdoor. It's outdoor recreation only. And that's going to maintain what is currently there. It could make it bigger because it does include all of those homes as well in front of there. But I thought that that was a really good suggestion that you had brought up at the zoning meeting. So thank you.
Yeah,
for all your points.
I like that. And otherwise you're trying to fit a, square peg in a round hole. And I think that's kind of what happened last week, just uniquely tailored. So you have 4 zoning districts. I mean,
Well, and Marcus had said, so it's cohesive, is that what he said? It's less, but I would think it's also less conditional uses.
Ideally, zoning makes small little changes. And that was a big one, adding one more district. And it was a huge difference to add a 4th one. So I
Well,
understand where Marcus is coming from.
so
He needs to think about it.
So, and I look at it again in the context of the survey, and that's like where like all this kind of gets stirred together in my head. And I'm thinking, well, people are upset about certain things. So they respond a certain way in the survey, or they want to see less or more of something. So these are opportunities that you can control going forward instead of waiting for somebody to come in and say, hey, guess what? I've just sold Buzzard Cove and we want to put in that strip mall, and it's too late.
Are there currently only 2 business districts?
Yes.
1 and 2?
Yeah. And thank you. I took your last water and I interrupted you, but there was actually one more thing I wanted to say, and then I could sit down. And that is, if you do hire a consultant for some of this stuff, which sometimes you need to, I think you have to really clearly define their scope of work and your expected deliverables from them, as opposed to having something open-ended. Even on the design standards, I think you've got to have something kind of in your mind to say what you want, and have them provide you with what you want. Otherwise, you get a general recommendation because it's feeding, as I've said before, it's feeding the next engagement. And so that's all. But I could sit down. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No.
So
Did I interrupt you? If you had one more.
no, I was done, but I had to.
You were choking.
I was choking. I didn't bring my water. So,
Well, thank you for your comments.
Always, thank you.
and I'll be glad to repeat them again next Tuesday.
Well, with nothing else, for the good of the meeting, make a motion to adjourn at 11:16.
Seth?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, folks.
I enjoyed this. I need to stick around more often.
You just enjoy the air.